Hello, I'm Dr. Terry Ann Scott, and I'll be your host today. I'm the director of the Institute for Common Power, an author and historian and former professor. Thank you so much for joining us on this final episode of the Seattle Seahawks, Our Journey Forward. For the past 3 years, the Institute for Common Power has partnered with the Seattle Seahawks to go on our Truth and Purpose learning tour. It's a life-changing, week-long journey, not only through the history of the South, but through self. The title of this series, Our Journey Forward, refers to what we experienced on the Truth and Purpose learning tour. The goal of the series is to recount our experiences and takeaways on a more personal level through conversation, and for you to walk away inspired. At the Institute for Common Power, we talk about education to action. Education without action is a privilege. And so we think about how we can move that education into action. And so before we get started, I want to introduce our panelists. So I'm going to ask each of you to say something about yourselves. Kyle, hi.
Hi, Dr. Scott. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, great. Good to see you again. It's been a while.
It has been.
Too long. I can't believe 3 years goes by like that. Yeah.
That is shocking.
Yeah. Well, I'm Kyle Doherty. I'm in our community engagement team. It's my 5th season, and I was lucky enough to go on one of the first learning tours.
Yes, you're part of the first group. Thanks, Kyle. All right, Donnie.
Hi, my name is Donnie Brock, and I am from the Truth and Purpose Group 1, OG, period.
The OG, yeah.
And this is my 4th season with the Seahawks. I'm excited to chat today, share some storytelling.
Wonderful. So we have the OG participants, and then we have a brand new participant, Aaliyah.
I know. Hello. My name is Aaliyah, and I work as a marketing coordinator for the Seahawks. It's my first season, and I went on just this past year on the Truth.
Perfect.
So,
Welcome.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. So the topic of this episode is people. And so it's the 4th episode and the final episode in this series. And so in this episode, we're going to talk about the people whom we met along the way and how those people have inspired us. And so I'm going to ask each of you to share with us something about an individual whom you've chosen to talk about and why you chose to talk about that person and how they inspired you and how they touched you. But before we do that, I want to ask each of you, why did you decide to go on this journey? So I'll go this way. Donnie, can we start with you? Why did you decide?
Yeah, so I actually was a little bit hesitant. You might have heard from other people from the tour. If you're someone that came from the South, you might have already felt like you knew everything there was to know. I come from a family where we really value Black history, and that was really integral to like my childhood and upbringing. But there was nothing that could have prepared me for being actually like in the places and spaces where all of this history was taking place. And although I was hesitant and kind of, naive and maybe a little bit like presumptuous about what I already knew, there was something that was like calling me to come. Yeah. And some people that were also calling me to come and said, go and get. So I went on and got, and it was so great, and I'm so grateful that I went.
And you're among the first group who went on the Institute's Truth and Purpose Learning Tour.
Yes.
And so there was nobody preceding you to say you should go. Kyle, you had the same experience.
Yep.
First group, and yet you chose to go. Why?
Yeah, honestly, I just have always wanted to be a lifelong learner in my life, and thankfully, I grew up in a diverse neighborhood and area in Federal Way, and my family always put me in situations to like learn from others and learn through diversity naturally. But honestly, I just thought I wanted to go deeper than the surface level, and this provided opportunity in like my career and adult life to take that journey and continue to learn and educate myself, especially in the work of the community department here, trying to give back to local communities and underserved communities. I just want to continue to educate myself so I can apply it the best way possible, and not just do things to do them, but have like a why and an understanding of why things are the way they are, and then how we can support them and help change the framework of them and continue to give back to local areas on behalf of the Seahawks and our platform.
And I know that both of you came back and really put that into action in the work that you're doing. I've heard that from other people here. So
I love that.
Trying to, yeah.
100%. So Aaliyah, then you had, to some degree, an advantage of hearing from people who had previously gone. Did that help inform your decision? If so, how did it, and why did you decide to go?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, like, as soon as I started as an intern last July, obviously so much has happened since then. I had no idea where that road and my career journey was going to lead me to and how much more I was going to learn even like above like work and career. So like, I mean, this trip in particular, when I first started, I spoke to a lot of people who have gone in previous years and of course putting a lot of trust in all of them, but I only heard the most amazing things. And I kind of told myself when I got the job that I wanted to say yes to everything. So when the opportunity arose, I texted Karen immediately and I was like, I'm signing up. I really, really love to go. I haven't gotten the opportunity to travel much in my life. And I feel like I had a lot to learn and I feel I'm very vocal about like my beliefs and I feel like I really wanted to have the knowledge to back all of that up. So it was an incredible experience.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm glad that all of you said yes and went.
So,
So this episode is called The People. And so we're going to talk about the people we've met along the way when we go on this journey. We spend essentially 6 days on the road and we go from Atlanta all the way through every aspect of history in Alabama to some degree. And we meet with foot soldiers. We travel with foot soldiers. We meet with history makers who are doing work today. And so each of you have decided to talk about one individual of the many with whom we've met. And I would like to hear why you chose that person to talk about and how that person impacted your life. So Donnie, we're going to start with you. And the person you chose is Contrell Jackson. Contrell was a young man, an African-American man who had been put in jail. And it is his case that was taken up by Brian Stevenson and the Equal Justice Initiative and was taken all the way to the Supreme Court that dictates that you cannot execute children because after being arrested at 14 years old, he was sentenced to death. And so now that can't happen. And that is a very recent occurrence in this century. And so while we were at the Equal Justice Initiative, the Legacy Museum, we just happened to run into him.
yeah.
So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it was honestly nuts. The way that I ran into him was actually at the Legacy Museum. We were walking through, everyone was kind of just taking their own kind of pathway towards it because it's such a like a personal experience. And even though we came as a group, I think we all had to take in each part of that museum individually. So once I got to the mass incarceration portion of the Legacy Museum, I knew that we only had so much time to be in there because I feel like the Legacy Museum is one of those places you can literally spend like 5-6 hours just like combing through every beautiful and like insane detail that they put into that place. But I had to choose of the mass incarceration section of these little phone booths that they had set up where you could speak to a formerly or currently incarcerated person to talk to them about their case with this like little phone that they had attached. Like, who was I going to pick? And I saw him and he was like the youngest person of the bunch and something just kind of like called me. I have a lot of callings if you haven't noticed. The spirit lives with me.
I love that you listen to them.
And do sometimes. So I sat down and I listened to his story and I was like, that's insane. So as I'm walking out of the Legacy Museum, which if anyone who's been there knows the experience of being in this entire room that's like filled with gold, walking out of that and just like the gut punch of like, wow, like that was breathtaking. He was waiting at the end of the museum unbeknownst to me. And he just asked me like, how did you like my story? And I was like, oh, I loved our story. I thought he was talking about like the collective Black experience. And I was like, yes, I love that story. Like it was insane. And he was like, no, I'm talking about my story. And he was like, you were listening to my story in the museum. And I was like, what are you doing here? Hey, like I literally didn't even know what to say. It left me speechless, which is very rare. So yeah. And one of the things that he said to me that has stuck with me ever since and has actually changed the trajectory of what I do with my craft as like a designer and like an artist and a creative person, as he asked me, what am I going to do about this? And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to need you to find out.
Wow.
And that's what I've been doing ever since, is trying to find out. Yeah.
And just a chance meeting.
Yes, it was insane.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fabulous. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Kyle, you chose Linda Lowry. Now, Linda Lowry, Miss Linda Lowry is from Selma, Alabama. She wrote a book called Turning 15 on the Road to Freedom. It is a book that has been banned in places across this country. And she was the youngest person who was permitted to walk all 54 miles from Selma to Montgomery after Bloody Sunday in 1965 a journey that would give to the nation the 1965 Voting Rights Act. And you got to meet with her in a coffee shop owned by Miss Jackie Smith in Selma, Alabama. Can you tell us about that?
She was 14 years old, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Crazy. I still can't believe it. We were lucky enough to sit there and have dinner with her before we actually took our walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And I just happened to be sat at her table, and we talked about nothing but just family and life and funny things and, shooting the I don't know if we can swear on here, but
we'll find out.
They'll cut it out. And yeah, it was great. Like just really getting to know her and talk about life and just, again, showing how there's so many connections between all of us, whether we're from the South or wherever. And we just really got along and had a great time. She knew several of the Seahawks players that she really admired, so she was talking about them and football. And she just had a charm about her. And if you know her, she's a spitfire and a firecracker, similar to her sister, Joanne Bland. And so we just spent a great deal together and got to know each other. Little did I know her story, right? Her real story. I just knew her as this amazing woman that looked like a grandmother figure to me and reminded me of mine, even though we're so different and have such different pasts and histories. And so after that, she then got up and talked to the whole room after Joanne called her out, which we know Joanne does a great job of calling people out for good reason. And she shared her story, and it was just like earth-shattering for me and many people. Like, I literally am sitting there after all this joyful conversation with her over a meal, and she's talking about the past of what she went through and that she was the youngest person and a little girl that got beat on that day. And then the triumph of that and the fact that later, not even a month later, she was able to walk across that bridge safely and finish it as she turned 15 from reading her book. I just can't believe that, and it will stick with me to this day. Any hard thing that anyone ever has to go through, like you can't even put it into words what some of these people had to deal with just for basic rights, that things that I grew up with that I couldn't even think twice about because it was just a natural born right. So that years later now has really resonated with me because I'm reminded constantly by what she taught us that day from her pain and history, and then what we're able to apply into our everyday life or the work that I'm blessed to do. So that just stuck with me forever. And the fact that she calls me and texts me like once a month to stay in touch. It's like the best part. It's hilarious. She's always talking to me. One time she called me and said, "I got another book banned." Like she's letting me know. She's letting me know that they're still trying. And I was like, you just got to keep fighting like you've been doing your whole life. And I mean, I just think it's incredible what she's done. And actually, you guys gave us these quote cards of hers, and it's the one from her, and it's pretty special, and it resonated with me, especially because I work in community. She says, we need to put the word unity back into the word community and the word human back into the word humanity. And that has been no more truer than now, especially back then. And again, as history continues to repeat itself sometimes. So that's always stuck with me. That sits at my desk, and just a constant reminder, and I just will never forget that conversation of her as just a person, and then realizing the story that she has had and that she left behind for all of us, and just total trailblazer. And yeah, I'm just honored to have met her, and I'll tell her story to the rest of my life. And that's one simple thing I feel like I can do, given the circumstances and the totality of what she actually went through.
I'm not surprised to hear that she contacts you a lot, because I remember sitting in the coffee shop and looking at you two, and you could see the synergy between the two of you, and I commented on it. It was so sweet to watch you two. So what a beautiful connection, and the way that you are thinking about her story to carry you through challenges.
Well, synergy is one thing. At the end, I end up being her assistant for her book signing as she signs all the books for everybody. So I helped her turn the pages, make sure, which I'm used to doing with our players here. So I think she found out what my job was and was like, I'm going to put him to work.
It was very sweet that she appreciated it.
It was great. I'll never forget it. It was truly an honor and a great memory.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kyle. And Aaliyah, so you chose somebody who is one of our Institute Education ambassadors at the Institute. So we have a program where we take K through 12 educators on this Truth and Purpose Learning Tour, and we give them scholarships because we know teachers are underpaid in this country. And so one of those educators, Russell Tribby, came back as a mentor on your last journey. Absolutely. And can you tell us why you chose him? And you have something to share with us as well.
I do. So similarly, the story kind of started from the Legacy Museum. I was incredibly touched and changed from that experience. After the gold room, you walk into like an art gallery, which really was a beautiful and creative way to, have you walking out of there on a different note than the heaviness of walking through it, which I felt like even just that resonated with me in a lot of ways. So I'm standing in the art gallery, just almost trying to just gather myself and reflect on everything that I had seen. And I come across a sculpture, and I believe it's called From Enslavement to Imprisonment, which was a theme of obviously something that we learned a lot about. And I just felt very moved by the sculpture. I believe it's by Kwame Bamfo. And I'd seen a lot of his work throughout the trip as well. So I just really recognized the name, and I probably stood in front of that sculpture for 5-10 minutes. I just looking at every detail. And eventually it was time to move on to the next. There was so much more to see. So I went to the sculpture park after that. Kind of like Donnie was saying, I was kind of going through it on my own, but there was times that I would connect and talk about our experiences with other people that are on the journey. And I came across another sculpture by the same artist. So Russell happened to be next to me, and I just made a comment of kind of sharing my moment with that sculpture with him. And I was like, I keep seeing this name everywhere. Just like, how cool is this? And admiring the art, but also obviously really feeling the emotions that are invoked by these pieces. And so I told him about the enslavement to imprisonment sculpture and my experience. He reached down into his bag and opened out a sketchbook. And I had probably talked to him once before on this trip. There's a lot to process and a lot of people to talk to. And he kneeled down and ripped this out of his sketchbook and gave it to me. It left me speechless. I didn't even share the experience with anyone until kind of the day had wrapped up, and I really wanted to talk about it. But I think I was also processing how incredible, how much that meant to me. So yeah, that it absolutely changed my life. And we still talk to this day. Oh. So yeah, very incredible. It really was those small moments for me that I will remember forever. And it's so nice to have an actual memento that brings me back to that exact place of how I felt then. So
sketch of the very
just incredible
statue.
Yeah.
Wow. Russell is a high school teacher in Chandler, Arizona. And he said he hadn't drawn for 20 years. And he said that going on this journey inspired him to start drawing again. And he gifted you that at that moment. Wow. Thank you all for sharing that. So moving, hearing all of your stories here. As we go to break, we're going to hear from Seahawks legend Michael Bennett, who was on the journey in 2024. Thank you all for talking about the importance of the people we meet along the way on this journey and how they have been with you ever since.
I'm coming here with the knowledge, but it's different from putting knowledge to space, and what that kind of does to you is it really changes your whole mindset on the responsibilities of humans. There's no off season for humanity. Humanity is a 24/7, 365 thing that we have to continue to work at. It's kind of like water, right? Sometimes the water is super rough and you can't see. So when the water is still, you see the reflection of who you truly are. And I think what these type of trips do is it requires you to be still and have a reflection of the history of America and also the history of what you're doing. It's a reflection of self.
Welcome back to our final episode of the Seahawks, Our Journey Forward. So we now have 3 new alumni from the Truth and Purpose Learning Experience. And so first, I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves. So Christine, can you start?
Of course. Well, my name is Christine Yu. I work in the digital department, specifically in social here, going on to my 3rd season. So still fairly new, but a little bit seasoned.
All right. Thank you. Welcome, Christine. Jacob.
My name is Jacob Parker. I'm a marketing data analyst here for the Seahawks going into my 4th season.
So, all right. Welcome. And
thank you.
Karen.
And I'm Karen Wilkins-Mickey, also known as K-Dub. And I'm the Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion going into my 5th season.
Wonderful. And Karen is the reason why we have this partnership with the Institute for Common Power and the reason why we have alumni in the first place. You are the one who has been recruiting people and making these journeys together happen. So
I have.
thank you. Welcome.
Thank
So
you.
before we get into the people, because the topic of this episode is the people we've met along the way, I want to ask both you, Christine, and you, Jacob, why did you even decide to go on this journey? And Jacob, I'm going to start with you because you were in the first group, the OG, as people have been saying. So Karen comes to you and says, hey, I have this journey. We're partnering with the Institute for Common Power. We want you to go through the South for a week on a bus. What are your thoughts and why'd you go?
Yeah, I guess immediately, I'll give you a little background because I actually went to school in the South. I went to school in Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it was real unique because when I was there, that was one of like the first times I feel like I had ever really experienced racism. And so when I went to school down there, my family was like, why do you want to go to college in Mississippi? Like, we left Mississippi for a reason. Like, why do you want to go back? And I, was chasing dreams and everything. But at the point in time, I feel like I wanted to get the true history. I feel like a lot of people in my family didn't necessarily want to talk about the past. We were always looking at moving forward. And so being progressive in that was great. But I also feel like I wanted to go because I wanted to, get the true story of what happened down there.
Fantastic. Well, I'm glad that you went. And then you were able to come back and share your experiences with other members of the Seahawks organization.
Yep.
And so, Christine, you were on the last journey. So there have been 3. You just came back a couple of months ago. What did you learn about the journey before you went on it, and why did you decide to go?
Yeah. Well, again, K-Dub, I trust her full-heartedly. If K-Dub says this is a great experience, I'm like, great. Where do I sign up? When can I go? So when I first started here, I think the second group was getting ready to go, and I had just missed the deadline to, apply to go. So when I talked to K-Dub about it, I was like, oh, yeah, I do want to go. Just figuring out timing. And so when K-Dub was like, it's April, it's, you can go next year. I was like, okay, now I have no excuse. And I was like, okay, K-Dub's like, I'm going to go. And I was like, no questions asked, I'll go. So it's, I think going into it, I just kind of had a base knowledge, but didn't know what to expect. Kind of went thinking that working in social and digital, we are telling stories of our fellow colleagues and teammates. Being an Asian American woman myself, I wanted to make sure I was educated because I have this responsibility under the Seahawks umbrella in a very public-facing platform to tell people stories. And I thought that I should do my due diligence to make sure it's authentic, it's the right perspective. It's, just making sure I had everything I could to tell authentic stories.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you both for sharing that. Yeah. So I want to go back to talking about the people and the people you met along the way. And so I'm going to ask each of you, and Jacob, I will start with you. So who do you want to talk about and why? What have you taken with you from the journey?
Yeah, I guess I will start with this, though. So when we were on our trip, I think we were right before we had walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. I think Alexa asked the question to Joanne Bland, and she was asking, she's like, okay, like, well, we're the next generation. Like, what, like, you all did this for us. Like, what are we supposed to do next? And I think Joanne just kind of sat there and stared at her for a little while and, was kind of like, that's what you're supposed to figure out. That's what we're supposed to figure out. That's what we're supposed to do. And so you gave a small piece about, like, Common Power and, like, the volunteers for votes. And I feel like I'm actually going to talk more about a group, and that is you all's group. I feel like you, David Domke, Charles, Mr. Charles, Puya, like, I'm giving a highlight and a shout out to all of you because all of you deserve your flowers. I had never experienced anything like that, going on a trip specifically to learn about not even just history, but like about my history. And so it impacted me, obviously, and everyone in different levels. But then just to be able to like go on these walks where I think there were points in time where I was angry or I was upset, and you could see that, and you like, kind of straggle back, and we would talk about it, and we would like kind of break down into it. I think that was very powerful for me. And so I want to give all of you your flowers for that, because you all have put in a tremendous amount of work. And I know that we're not the only group that you all are taking on these types of trips. So I know that it's a lot of hard work. We really appreciate you. And I'm not even just speaking for me, like for everybody. Yeah. Like, you guys are
incredible.
Great. That's really, I think I can speak for everybody at the organization to say we really appreciate that. And I want to add, you said it's now part of the DNA of the Seahawks organization. I also want to acknowledge the organization because there are not a lot of organizations engaging in this kind of work, embracing truth, making sure that their people in their organization are able to experience this. It's a big deal.
It's not a if, it's a when.
Yeah.
It's when is it? When's the next trip? When is it? Like Christine said, I'm applying to the next one. It's when. There's an open enrollment for it now. You can at any time express interest now. It's not during a period. It's on our newsletter that we send out every month internally. If it's for everybody to know internally, we send it out every month. But you can apply to be part of it. So
Some of us are trying to go for a second time.
You go to our point 2, the Tennessee Mississippi Learning Tour.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Well, okay. Great. Done. Christine, can you tell us about the people you met along the way and how that has inspired you?
Yeah. I mean, echoing what Jacob said, it's incredible. Like, there's no words that can put, that you can even form to even describe like the care you guys take into, bringing these people or making specific people that you introduce us to. Obviously, Mr. Charles Malden is a huge impact. Like, I remember coming out of my hotel room the first night or the first day, and he's like, "Hi, I'm Charles," and I was like, "Oh, I don't know who he." I was like, "Hi, Charles." Like, okay. Little did I know by the end of the trip, it's like, oh my gosh, Mr. Charles Malden. We met Dr. Lafayette, and we've met so many people, Miss Joanne Bland. There's just you, Dr. Terry Ann Scott, David Domke. I think the people that we met, it's just, I think I'm echoing for a lot of people here that have gone on this trip. But the biggest thing that I've taken away from this is everyone talks about building leadership. Everyone talks about, it's not about, no one ever said, Mr. Charles Malden never said, hey, I did this or I did that. It was, hey, this is what we're learning about. What are you guys are the next me. Like, don't look at me. Like, I'm just Charles,
Right.
And he's looking at us like, you guys are the leaders here. You guys are doing the walk. And, we're looking at ourselves thinking like, what are you talking about? We had the Seahawks pay for our trip. We're staying in a nice hotel. We're just, you guys tell us when to wake up. So I think just Dr. Lafayette, Mr. Charles Malden, Miss Joanne Bland, they've all pushed us to teach us how to become leaders, teach us how to become, the next, I guess, generation of foot soldiers, next generation of people that can build future generations and educate people. Yeah. I think that all these people have, I think it's been so great because just immediately, just from that, it's so empowering to have that leadership skill taught to us, not only for myself, but a group of us that, I'm not going to lie, our department, we're a small and mighty company, but I think a lot of us don't get to interact with a lot of departments. And so on top of that, these people have helped us even create relationships between our organization.
Yeah.
So
That's fair.
Yeah. Whom you would not have normally interacted with.
Right.
I love you talking about leadership, and actually it unexpectedly takes me into this transition to we're going to start to wrap up, and Karen, I want to ask you the final question, but it has to do with this connection to leadership. So at the Institute, we say education to action. And so education, and I say it all the time, my colleague Dr. David Domke says it, education is a privilege if it doesn't lead to action. Now, action comes in many different forms. Jacob, you talked about some of the action in the work that we're doing. I know that you are doing work here that is action-oriented. You talking about leadership, honing leadership skills is a form of action so that you can be a beacon for others to do work that they need to do. And you organizing this relentlessly is a profound form of action. And you do so many other things here as well that are action. Can you talk about this idea of education action as related to these journeys and maybe what you have witnessed with people coming back, what you have helped to foster?
It's incredible. I mean, I always think about our work, and when we're educating our teammates, I think of these things. I think of celebration, I think of education, and I think of impact. Because if we're not doing those three things, and we're not doing it right, like we don't want to just tell the story. Even on the journey, we had a lot of hard times where it was difficult, it was heavy. And that's why when Jacob says, like, I don't know how many times you've done this, like it's just so heavy every single time. But, at the end of the day, we come together in celebration, and we come together and we are thankful. And so when I'm thinking about, the work that we're doing within the organization, I think about those things, and I think about how am I educating and creating impact too, so that when you've learned something, you walk away thinking, I'm going to do something different. And what is that one thing I'm going to do different tomorrow that I didn't do today because I learned this? Fortunately, coming back from the trip inspires you to do more. We did not have employee resource groups at our organization 2 years ago.
Yeah, I was going to say.
We have 6 within the year. We are approaching a year anniversary of having all 6 employee resource groups. Of those 6, they are led by probably 90% have gone on this journey, if not more. I feel like every leader of those 20 leaders, if you put them all in a room, maybe a couple have not gone on the journey.
Amazing.
And one couldn't go this year, but was signed up to go. So every one of them, and that's not an expectation. That's not like you can't be a leader of a ERG unless you do this. But I will tell you, after the journey, more people have raised their hand to be leaders. Christine is a leader of the Blossom, which is our Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander.
There's a couple
I
more.
say it ANHPI employee resource group. Jacob is a leader of the Black sports professionals. And in addition, he supports all the other employee resource groups as an ally. And so I think I can go through every single person that's gone on that journey that has done more. We come together.
Yeah.
We show up for each other. If there's something happening, if it could be hear our stories. We had a panel. We all show up. We're all going to NAM to celebrate the Institute for Common Power tomorrow. We show up. That's part of it. It's you can learn about something and go, that was interesting, or you can learn about something and do something about it. And there's so many other examples. But for me, I want to continue to carry the messages that I've learned. I want to be a better thought leader. I want to be a better practitioner in this space. And every single time I go, I've come back stronger and better as a leader. At least I hope I do. But I want to be an example.
I don't know how you get better.
I want to be. I want to be better. I want to be you, Dr. Terry. No, I want to be Dr. Terry.
You are fantastic.
But hopefully that explains the action. But I feel like we can always do more. But I'm very pleased with the progress that has been made, and there's more to be done. But very, very happy with where we are.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to close by saying that being a part of this series, and thank you for that, has filled my soul. Because when we talk about the people, and I'm just thinking about this now, I mean, I'm coming through the building here, seeing people from all through 3 journeys, having memories. You all are the people. If I have to choose the people, it's really an honor. Seriously.
Thank you.
So thank you all.
Thank you for the performance that you and David Domke do.
Always.
Somebody mentioned that, like, it's a performance, and I was in the last one, and I said, yes, that's what it is.
Yeah.
We just watched
You guys made a meme for us.
Yeah, and a meme, because it's
Shout out, Alex.
Shout out, Alex.
That's great.
Alex did that, but it's true, and I didn't think about it in that moment, but when he said it, I was like, yeah, that's what happened. So thank you, and we just appreciate being able to retell the stories of our journey, and there'll be more.
Thanks for keeping us a part of it. And shout out to Derek for producing
Yes,
behind
Derek.
the scenes.
Yes, sir.
Derek.
This is a moment, and it's a wonderful moment. This time out here together, this time right here, crossing the bridge, irreplaceable. And also, it is only one moment. We are not here for one moment. We're here for this moment and every moment after this. But the only way that we get there, the only way we make it past these moments and through these moments is together. Further together on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Further together.